Next, we have a presentation from Phil Greenstreet, and it's going to tell us about SoftDrop, a product from Rosco.
Thank you. Okay, so any of you who have been here before have probably seen this. So there's some good news and there's some not so good news. The good news is it's not another presentation about lighting. Not exactly. The better news is that it's going to be nice and short. And then the not so good news is that's to leave more room for Emily to talk about lighting. But here we go. So SoftDrop, it does day and night. So if we can, you can kill the, there we go. So this is pretty much in night mode. There's a lot of ambient obviously hitting it, but you get the feeling. And then can we bring up all the front light? So it does day as well. The difference between this and things you may be used to being that this is now printed on cotton, so it's a lot more matte, a lot more ecologically sound. Rosco you're familiar with, hopefully. We've been in the lighting business since 1910, probably longer than most of you. And over the years the products change, but this is one of the current crop. I'm Phil Greenstreet. I do backdrops worldwide. Emily, who's going to follow up, is a bit more specialized in terms of geographic area and a lot less specialized in terms of products in that she does absolutely everything. So even if you have a backdrop question, she's a really good person to talk to. We also bought a company a while ago called DMG Lumiere, which is the lights that you see around me, and that's what Emily's going to be talking to, I think. Not that I've seen her presentation. But I'm talking backdrops and SoftDrop in particular. SoftDrop, it's very big. We can print 39 feet high by 170 feet wide in one single seamless piece. To put it into context for some of you and to give a good shout out to the dinosaurs in the room, such as I, this is gives you an idea of scale, if anyone's ever been to the Natural History Museum. 39 feet high, 170 feet wide is bloody enormous and seamless, as I said before. We made vinyl backdrops for 20 plus years and felt a bit guilty about it. Plastic's not such a great thing to be putting out into the environment, so we're transitioning into using cotton, which is a much more natural fabric, of course, and brings a few advantages as well. I mean, it's lighter, it's more matte, it's made with water-based inks on a natural fiber. It's 150% carbon offset, so it's a very eco-friendly product. Here are some projects that we've been working on this year. I can see this as being sort of an update to last year's presentation. Homeland isn't out yet, I don't think, so this is the redacted version. So trust me, when it comes out, there'll be a really great image for the backdrop. We've done some other things in the last year or so, though, some that we're proud of and some perhaps less so, but still interesting. So isn't it romantic? Had a very distinct, romanticized look of New York, for which we created these two backdrops. Basically, one is the view across from Brooklyn towards New York, and the other being New York, but totally fantasized in the sense that every single well-known building in New York is in this backdrop. So we basically culled our entire library to create these images. We also worked on some other projects, John Wick 3 being one of them, which I'm sure everyone's quite familiar with. If anyone's worked on any of these, just wave at me in case I'm saying something wrong. And I know one's coming up, but John Wick is the big shoot 'em up at the end. This was a night-only backdrop, which we also do, and basically a lot of light and shade really going on. But the reason for using a backdrop rather than, say, a blue screen was the fact that it's a glass office, and so if you'd use blue screen, there would be blue pollution over every single surface, whereas the backdrop, just all the bounces look natural. This is the image that we used. Wasn't actually shot for John Wick. It was shot for a TV show called Golden Boy about 5 years previously. We just recycled the photography and turned it into a rather large backing, being 430 odd feet wide. And this is what Dan did with it. We also worked on The Boys, which I believe Evans, wherever he is, also worked on. So at least there's one in the room. Views of New York, high level. These were very small backings, only 100 feet long. One north, one south from 30 Rock, the Rockefeller Center, the top of the rock. We also did a show that I can't tell you about. It was one of those shows. I'm sure it's a company for whom many of you have worked at some point, or will work. But the backdrop they chose was 39 feet by 710 feet, which is the biggest one that we've done to date. But I'm sure, given that the trend is ever upwards and ever larger, that it won't be the biggest one we ever do. We also did the morning show. Anybody work on that here? Oh, hand at the back. This was one of the work in progress images. So you can see there's something distinctly dodgy going on in the building on the right there. Partly because it was, like I said, a work in progress, and partly because I did the Photoshop on this, and my Photoshop skills are very rudimentary. But I take the photos and then put a rough together and send them off to the experts who actually do it for real. So when Reese Witherspoon is present, they do not have big cracks going down the buildings, hopefully. Unless you're doing that movie, which may happen. Here's an interesting project that we did in Germany. It's slightly different to the ones that we normally promote in the sense that it's not a big, well-known thing. It's actually a student project. It's called 8 minutes, 20 seconds, which is the time that it takes for light to reach the Earth from the sun. And basically, it's a student disaster movie, as opposed to a disaster of a student movie, and we've been involved in a few of those as well. So Paul is studying in Baden-Württemberg at Ludwigsburg, but it takes quite a long time to go through all those vowels and consonants and stuff, so it ends up being called LuBu, which is the film school. So the guys at LuBu took one of our drops that already existed, which was made for the girl in the spider's web, and they re-sculpted it for their own purposes. This was the drop in its original format. Let's zoom in a bit. You can see it's a frozen lake in Sweden. This is Paul in action. And basically the concept is it's a disaster movie, the sun's going out, and it's the effects on a situation on the Earth as the sun goes out. So they were trying to create different lighting effects, and by changing the color temperature and changing the lighting on the backdrop, they created a host of different effects in a way that they just couldn't have done by going out and doing what the normal student thing is, which is shooting on location. So these are just some of the stills from the film. A goldfish, obviously, who apparently is quite sensitive to climate change, unlike some of the other gold things in this world. Here's the drop in play. You can see fairly simple lighting because it's so matte you can light it pretty much anyway. And in fact, it's so easy to light that we're very confident about giving it to students to do that. There's the setup inside, and the lighting board was rigged so that people could pretty much create the look that they wanted. And then disaster starts to strike, and they come up with all these different looks, going down to something that looks really bad at the end. And I would love to be able to tell you that they used Emily's lights to do this, but I'm pretty sure they just used gel. But I'm absolutely convinced it was Rosco gel, so that's okay too, because we still make gel. But that's it. It's something that we're very committed to at Rosco, student outreach. So if you are involved in student programs, or you have people who you know who are involved in student programs, please come and ask. Don't be afraid to ask for stuff, because obviously it's to our advantage to get new filmmakers involved with our materials, so we're always willing to lend stuff out for student programs. And there's Paul himself.
So Phil, how do they photograph these? Is it a number of still images?
So multiple still images. This one was actually shot by my opposite number in Berlin, Sarah Horton. But if it were me, I'd be out with my Mamiya medium format. Adrian, who's taking photos at the back, also takes photos for Rosco. She's now transitioned to the new Fuji 100 megapixel camera, which makes me jealous because mine's only 80. Hers also
and then you
does.
stitch them together,
And
depending
then we
on how
stitch
big it
together,
is.
yeah. So we generally shoot with 50% overlap between frames, and then just stitch it together as big as you want, whether it's 100 feet or 710 feet.
And how many of these are available to rent?
We have approximately 2,000 backings in rental stock.
Wow.
Yep.
And mostly they're housed in Sun Valley or...
Some in Sun Valley, some in
Sanford.
Connecticut, some in Spain.
Wow.
So wherever you are in the world, we have them. And because they're now fabric, wherever you are in the world, they just fold up, go in a box, and you can have them in 3 days.
Yeah, even this one, it's you can't see it all. It was 32 feet wide, I think, much wider than we needed. And it just came in a small package.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.